You know, Shiloh, I am so proud of you that you're looking up things on the internet and educating yourself.
I looked up Black Wall Street.
That was very crucial as a turning point for Black wealth in this country.
We actually had wealth, buildings, places, and everything like that. So I'm already inspired by what my ancestors are, who I am, and I'm basically, you know, proud of it. So yeah.
Welcome to the dinner table, we gon' talk it out. Serious or playful, fam and friends speaking aloud, yeah. He said, she said, we said, that's what we about. Family talking together, listening to every member, yeah.
What I've learned from you guys with homeschooling is that your personalities kind of dictate how I homeschool.
Oh, yeah. Shab, what do you think about being homeschooled?
It's good, but like sometimes it has its ups and downs. Like, you know, the only friends are really your sisters. I do have IRL friends as well, but like.
What does IRL mean?
In real life.
I really enjoyed having different types of curriculum for you guys because you guys all learned in such a different way because of your personalities and your temperaments.
For me, I had trouble with math, and so I loved how you guys took a little extra time with me.
Also, I like how we do some things differently. That documentary that we watched was a really great one to do for history instead of like just going through a textbook, you know what I mean?
No, my favorite memory was when we were learning about countries from A to Z. Like, we would learn about, let's just say, if it was an A country, Australia, and then we would learn about, I don't know, all the way down to Z, Zambia, which is, that was fun.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe you guys remember that.
You know, as much as I appreciate homeschool now, I know at the time when I was younger, I really, really wanted to go to school because, you know, you just see it on TV and you're like, oh, it looks so cool. I remember when I had a whole strike set up, you know, I had my little sign and I just sat on the stairs and I was like, I want to go to school.
That was
and I had my whole
cringy.
chant ready.
There are pros and cons to public education and homeschooling your kids. And when you're in the public school system, yeah, of course, you're gonna be able to socialize with more people than just your siblings. But the benefits of homeschooling is that, you know, if there's holes in the curriculum, we get to fill them easily and we don't have to go through a lot of politics and red tape in order to change the curriculum.
In an effort to fill those gaps in American history, our dinner guest, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Nikole Hannah-Jones, created the 1619 Project for the New York Times. Published in August of 2019 on the 400th anniversary of the beginning of slavery in what would become the United States, the 1619 Project is a series of essays that examine slavery's modern-day legacy. It also addresses curriculum and cultural biases by reframing the way American history and the contributions of African Americans are understood.
Delicious.
No.
Savory, oh my goodness.
Oh, I think our guest is here. I'm gonna go get the door.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Nikole.
Hi.
Come on in. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you got to come and join us for dinner. Guys, here's our guest.
Oh my goodness. Welcome to the Onyx Family table.
Have a seat. For dinner, we are having noodles and kimchi, chicken dumplings, I should say vegan chicken dumplings, bok choy, and a salad.
Sounds excellent.
All right, let's dig in.
What's your favorite type of vegan food?
With meat, no, I'm playing. I like vegan food that's just naturally vegan, not that's trying to reconstitute something to be like meat.
Right,
I like having the things that I no longer have. Recreated.
And was this like a family vote, or how did it
was.
We did actually do a family vote.
Right, during the COVID, we decided we wanted to like work in our health, and so we all kind of voted for that during that time.
And does anybody cheat?
Yes, yes, right here, right here.
Okay.
Have this family.
I respect the honesty.
As we dig in, I gotta tell you, another really interesting fact about our family is that we've homeschooled them all their life. And one of the reasons why we did that was because we wanted to homeschool them and educate them with the material that we felt was more relevant to their life and that we could more control.
So I'm assuming you all are using some standardized curriculum.
We used to use that, and now we're more like creative in the way that we approach our
Now that
homeschooling.
they're older.
Right.
Yeah.
When you think about what is an education supposed to do, it's supposed to make us question. right? It's not supposed to indoctrinate us in a particular belief, but to make us question our world, to become curious, to be skeptical. You wonder, well, why did they only teach us these facts and not these? Once I started learning there was a little bit of history they hadn't taught me, then I started wondering, like, what else didn't they teach me?
Right.
When did you have a desire to really dig deep into African American history?
When I was a kid, I know it's hard to believe, but I was very nerdy. But I would say it was in high school. My high school offered a Black Studies elective course. And I took that course, and it was like, in some ways, my eyes were open for the first time. Wow. Because I was like, wait, there's all these books about Black people. There's all these books by Black people. As a Black child, when you never see yourself in the story, you start to feel inferior. You start to feel like you're not in the story because your people didn't do anything important enough to be in the story. Right. And once I started reading Black history, I just became really empowered as a student. I became that kid in class who was always challenging the teacher and saying, what about this? What about that? You can do that if your grades are good. If your grades aren't good, you can't really do that.
I gotta tell you, when we tried to choose different curriculum, there were problems sometimes in the way that it was taught. Like there was a bias that we could clearly see through misleading or just plain false statements that they were trying to basically pass off as truths. And it was funny because Shalom caught something that I guess I had missed.
One day when I was sitting on the table with Shiloh, he was learning history, and his teacher said this comment that just really got me, saying how slaves should be happy that they were here because, you know, it's the land of the free, or something within those lines.
Black people should be happy they were brought here to America so they can have better lives.
Yeah, it was like along those lines. And then I was just so shocked. I had to replay it to my whole family, and I was disgusted.
It almost seems as though history is being rewritten.
I wouldn't even say it's being rewritten. That narrative that slavery wasn't so bad, that it benefited Black people, was really created right after the Civil War. Okay. It's called the Lost Cause narrative, and it was really the way that white Americans could come to grips with this idea of saying we were a country founded on freedom, but engaging in slavery at the same time.
Like if we were really to just teach history in the way that it really was, the harsh reality, it would be so different.
You see that the dialogue right now in our country is about history and how do we teach our country history, and there's a lot of back and forth on that. So what are the plans that we need to come together to figure out how we can teach all of our children truth, real history?
When you understand kind of how social studies curriculum are developed, they tend to be developed to be a nationalistic curriculum, right? They're not designed to simply say this is what happened in history. They're designed so we have a common sense of what America is. And so they're going to play up the good aspects of America and try to marginalize and downplay the darker aspects, which means much of the Black American story, much of the indigenous American story gets left out. And I always say that that means you can't actually understand the country that we're living in, because those histories are influencing us, whether we acknowledge them or not. We can never allow any single source to be all the information that we're learning about anything. That's part of the reason we created the 1619 Project curriculum. It's not supposed to replace normal social studies, but it should be used to supplement. And I think when you use something like 1619 Project curriculum with a standard social studies curriculum, what it does is you wonder, well, why did they only teach us these facts and not these?
So could you explain more on what the 1619 Project even is?
The 1619 Project is a project by the New York Times that came out in August of 2019, and it marked the 400th anniversary of the first Africans being sold into what would become the United States. So it really took that 400 years as a milestone and wanted to put the year 1619 into the national lexicon, because most Americans had never heard of the date, and I think it's one of the most important dates in our history. And so through a series of essays, we really look at how does the legacy of slavery shape the society that we live in right now.
So why do you feel like it was important to make it?
I think it was important because we were a country founded on slavery, and yet we've really treated slavery as marginal to the American story. And I felt that using this 400-year anniversary to show us that slavery was central to America, that there's almost no institutions older than the institution of slavery. The first English colonists landed Jamestown in 1607, and in just 12 years, we began engaging in African slavery.
Wow.
But if you think about how we're taught about it, right, you get couple paragraphs about the Civil War, and that's it. And yet, all across our society, I mean, we saw in 2020, there were global protests in America just saying Black Lives Matter. In January 6th, we saw insurrection on our nation's capital. How do you understand that society without understanding the legacy of slavery?
So how important do you think it is to have different perspectives in the classroom on history?
A lot of people act like learning a multiracial history is just about political correctness, but it's actually about accuracy. It's actually about what is the truth of our history, and the truth requires that we tell that story from different perspectives. And the last thing is, I think it just sharpens all of our thinking, right? If you're in a room full of everyone who thinks exactly like you, who's had the same experiences that you have, that doesn't actually help you become a critical thinker, because all you do is you all affirm each other's point of view. And that's, to me, the most beautiful thing about learning and being in a classroom environment is you're forced to think about the world, your place in it, in a way that you wouldn't otherwise.
Well, I see a lot of people, whenever people are like, we should put more African-American history inside textbooks and stuff like that, a lot of people online have an argument of, you shouldn't rewrite history or just leave it the way it is. What do you say about that?
People, when they say that, I think fundamentally don't understand how history is created. So history is both what happened on what date and who did it, and then history is what have we been taught about what happened on what date and who did it.
There you go.
So if I'll give random historical facts, because I'm a history nerd, right? How many of you were taught that George Washington's teeth were made out of wood?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
His teeth were not made out of wood. His teeth were actually made out of human teeth that were pulled from the mouths of enslaved people.
What?
So, this is a shocking fact, but it's actually just a fact. So then we have to question, why were we taught that they were made out of wood if they weren't? And whose purpose did that serve? So when people tell me, why are you rewriting history? What I'm saying is we're trying to correct the false narrative of history that we've all been taught.
What advice would you give to even a white parent who wants to be an ally?
I always taught my daughter, most people aren't good or bad. People are capable of doing really amazing things and really terrible things. And that's like innate in all of us. And we have to teach not deifying our founders who did many terrible things, but putting that in the context and saying they also did great things. And what does it mean about humanity that you can talk about freedom but own other human beings, and how do we grapple with that? So I think white parents have to just be honest, because if you raise a child to say that we were a country founded on freedom and slavery at the same time, then when they look in their world and they see, well, why in a free country do Black people still struggle? Why in a free country are Black people the poorest population? Why are we the most incarcerated population? Why are we most likely to be killed by the police? If you don't grapple with these contradictions, then you can't explain this world to the child. And what the child then comes away with is, we all have the same freedoms and rights, so Black people must just choose to be like this. And that to me is very dangerous.
When I read the 1619 Project, it kind of motivated me because hearing how much Black people went through back then, and now we're still here, it's just like, it's a testimony.
That's when people are like, oh, it's so hard, or it makes Black people feel bad. No, it doesn't. Because when you understand like what we have survived in this country, that everything this nation tried to do to us and we're still here, I don't know how you don't feel pride about that. So it just makes my heart feel so good that that's what you took away from it. Because it is hard. Our story in America is hard. We have been through a lot, but we never stop fighting. And we're all the testimony to what our ancestors went through, and I think that's beautiful and empowering.
Mango ice cream.
And yogurt?
It looks so good.
Guys, conversation today was so enlightening.
Really?
And of course, educational, since we did have a professor at dinner. Man, she really broke it down on how important it is for us to learn all history, not to rewrite it, but to make it accurate.
Make sure there's no cultural bias in our school systems.
What she was saying was that the cultural bias in our curriculum is because it is written from a certain perspective. So they're going to take it from that perspective and teach what they feel is important. So the 1619 Project is really important because it now comes from the perspective of the descendants of those who built this country.
Yeah, every single thing that she said in there, I was in shock. I was like, wow, we've really done a lot in this country, and it makes me more proud to be American. But when you read the 1619 Project and when you do your own research and you see the things that your own ancestors have done to build this country, it's like, wait, you know, why
I'm not
should
going to
I?
abandon that.
Right.
So Shiloh, would you have liked to have had her as your homeschool teacher?
You know what? Definitely yes. I would have definitely preferred that rather than listening to someone say, you know, we should have been grateful that we've been here.
I'm glad that even from before, you know, that you guys took the initiative to change our curriculum and to include a broader range of subjects and cultures and topics.
All this history talk's making me want to get into it more.
Get into history?
Yeah.
Is history your favorite subject?
No. I mean, I'm glad I'm just done with school.
Oh, man.
Why did you guys choose to go to a historically black college?
Choosing to be in that environment was freeing. It gave me such a boost of confidence. I felt like this was a whole world I was missing.
I went to find a fine black woman to marry.
Wow.
And I did. And I accomplished that mission. And when you
So
go to...
you were working your ratios out here.
Oh, yeah,
Odds.
for sure. And I got the most beautiful one.
No.
Oh, that's nice.